Hello students, happy Friday and good morning. Today we're going to be doing an introduction example to our assignment today called Unit 6 Enduring Issues Document Practice. So today being Friday, this is the first concluding assignment of our unit. Over the past couple days we've finished off the packet pages, and I also have posted the answer key slides for those packet pages earlier today. So that should be just below this post on your classroom stream. So today's task is just to work on this separate assignment document and do a little bit of practice on enduring issues. This is something that I'm giving you a guiding due date to submit today, but if you need a little bit more time and you submit it over the weekend, that's perfectly fine too. One other announcement about something that's coming out today on Aspen is that your interim reports are released for you and your parents to look at. They're on the Aspen program. And I also sent out some emails to both you and your parent and guardian emails and contacts yesterday, just to give you a notice of that information being available and a little bit more information for especially your parents on what that means and how to access how to interpret the comments and things that are put on there. So make sure that you're checking your status and progress at this halfway interim point, and take any steps and ask me any questions that you need to if you are behind and need to catch up, so that you guys can get that P for progress mark at the end of the quarter. Okay, so for this document practice today, we're going to do one example of this together. And then I'm going to have you guys try the rest of them on your own. So let's go over to that assignment and I'll give you a little brief overview. Okay, so each unit we've done some enduring issues document practice. Sometimes it's just the terms and the concepts, which were given over the last couple of units, where I give you a big term bank and I ask you to categorize them in the right enduring issue category. This one we haven't done, I don't think, in a couple of the units. This is where I actually give you some documents to practice on. This would be similar to the task that you're going to be asked to do on your actual Regents exam next year. They give you a handful of documents, and the task culminates in you having to write an essay based on an enduring issue that shows up throughout several documents. So in order to practice these skills, what we're doing this year in 9th grade is giving you guys a template of a table to use in order to gather some information and identify enduring issues that show up in these documents. So remember, this table is not going to be on these documents next year on the actual Regents exam, but this is just something that we're trying to get you guys in the habit of doing so that you know how to pull out information from these documents when the paper is blank and you guys can just draw in a quick little table like this and organize information yourselves. All right, so let's go over the directions just so we are clear and reminded of what the concept and definition are of an enduring issues. So an enduring issue is a challenge or problem that has been experienced across time. And I do want to point out that this word here makes it sound very negative, a problem. But it doesn't always have to be a negative thing. It can simply be a challenging situation or task that somebody or a group of people are experiencing. It doesn't always have to be a negative event that's happening. It could be a good thing. And enduring issues are historically significant, which means they're important for us to look at if they are things that affect a lot of people and have long-lasting effects on history. So our directions for this document is to analyze each of these documents using the 3-step analysis table. And I've also given you the enduring issues list on the very last page that gives us that 8 or 9 most common enduring issues for you to look at if you're trying to remember, some of the big ones that have come up over this year. So just to take a quick look at that, here are the icons, the titles, and the definitions to help you refresh your memory on those. So if you're ever blanking on brainstorming what enduring issue you're thinking of based on what you're looking at, just go to the bottom of the table and look these over. This is almost like your term bank you can choose from. It should be very helpful. Step number 2, of course, you're watching this screencast video to complete the first document as an example along with me, but I want you to try the rest of them on your own to complete the assignment after this example. There's 4 documents total. We'll be doing one together. That means I want you guys to try the other 3. And number 3 on our directions, I also want you to complete the closing task where you decide on which enduring issue you would theoretically write an essay on if this was an actual Regents exam. And of course, do not forget to turn in this assignment on Google Classroom on the assignment post when it's done. So let's go to that closing task, just so you know what is coming up after the documents. So of course, I don't want to give you a full enduring issues essay to write. That's not quite the focus here and wouldn't quite be fair given that we're trying to do this over the internet, online. But I do want you to just take one extra step after analyzing and working through these documents. So that step would basically be, if this was a real Regent situation, is to look over all the information that you've gathered from the documents and make a little bit of a plan on what you would want you to write your essay on. So the directions here is to look back through all 4 documents and consider which enduring issue was identified in all or most of the documents. And that would be the one that you want to actually write your essay on if this was a real Regents task. So this is where I want you to do that. Simply just writing which enduring issue you think shows up the most that you would be able to write about. And then number 2, explain in 3 to 5 sentences why your chosen enduring issue is historically significant for our unit topic on African kingdoms in the Middle Ages. Basically think about how did it affect a lot of people and leave a lasting impact for this region and this time period. This is where I want you to do that down here. So that's just one closing task to kind of give you an extension of practice beyond just going through the documents. So this first document, there's always 2 steps that I want you guys to do. The first one is to take a little bit of time to analyze and annotate each document, which means if this was especially on paper, I would want you and expect you to make a couple of notes off to the side, maybe highlight or point out anything that you see in a map, or if it's a text document like the one below, to read through, maybe highlight or underline any important parts that you see in the document to help you come up with a main idea and get the gist of what they're telling you. Since this first document is just a map with a title and a key, or a legend in this case is what they're calling it, but there's no text or paragraphs to it, sometimes these can be a little bit harder because there's no actual written information. You have to do a lot of analyzing and thinking about what they're showing you, what the items on the map actually mean. So that's why I want to do this first one with you together. After we analyze the documents, the second step is to use our template. And again, this is not going to be there on the Regents. And my biggest helpful tip that I can give you when you're filling these tables out is to not think of it as answering a question for, in this case, me as the teacher or the scorer to give you points for, because on the actual Regents, that's not the case. This section here is going to be blank, and on the real Regents, this is just a note-taking space. Anything that you write or don't write here doesn't matter at all, actually, for your score. It's the essay that you write that they're going to score. But during 9th grade, we're trying to give you the proper procedures and incorporate some habits that you guys can use next year. So what we're doing is we're giving you 3 tables. One, to identify where what the main idea of the document is. The second column is to list at least one enduring issue that you think is reflected by the ideas and events in the document. And 3, some brainstorming opportunities to think about any outside information about the context or effects of the events and ideas in the document. essentially, what else do you know that the document is cluing you in on, or gives you some kind of trigger that reminds you of something else? So don't think about this as, answering a question per se. Think of it as giving yourself good notes and writing down good information that will help you write a better essay. So which means that we're going to try to make notes on these tables very thoroughly, not just simple 3 or 4 word um, responses. So I'm going to go over to a slide so I can fill these in with you. All right, so step 1 is, of course, to spend a little bit of time looking at the map and analyzing what it's trying to tell us. So the first thing, if there's ever a title, always take a moment to think about what they're telling you. Are they putting you into a time frame? Is the map titled to give you any information? So this one is called Trade in Northern Africa, around 1300 CE, so that same time period of the Middle Ages. And it is showing us a couple of labels on the bottom. On the legend, which is also sometimes called a key, it's telling us what is labeled and what information is important. We have, in dotted lines, Mansa Musa's route to Mecca. We have trade routes, several of them, going through Timbuktu, down into the Atlantic Ocean, up through Morocco towards the Mediterranean Sea. A big long one going from Timbuktu across the Sahara to Cairo, Egypt, and up to the Mediterranean Sea in that direction. So that right there should kind of trigger some information and remind us about where the major trade routes were going in and out of, like this trading capital of Timbuktu. Think for a second, which West African kingdom did we learn about that had the capital of Timbuktu? And then there's also a couple of mines labeled. There's salt mines up in the north and one over here in the Sahara. There's also gold mines down here in the southwestern section of this region, more towards the coast, and also a gold mine over here by the Nile near Egypt. So take a moment, maybe pause the video here for just a second to think about what this is showing us and allow your memory and your recollection to think about any information that this reminds you of. So now what we have to do is, for the first question, we have to summarize what we think the main idea of this document. What are they trying to show us and tell us? Well, looking at our legend, which is really the wording information that they're giving us in a map, we know that there are natural resources that are being mined, and there is movement of people with those natural resources, trade routes, and then also they're telling us a little bit about Mansa Musa's route to Mecca. So those two things, natural resources and trade, I want you to put that idea into your own words for the rest of these documents. For this document, this is what I would write for myself. West Africa was rich in natural resources like gold and salt. They traded such items across the Sahara Desert to places like the Mediterranean Sea, Mediterranean region, and also Egypt, near the Middle Eastern region. So once you have an idea of what they're trying to tell you, and you've put all the information that you've soaked up or analyzed from the document, now you have to think about which enduring issue does this fit into. So this is kind of like the other document practice that we do. When I give you a concept or an event and I ask you to categorize it into an enduring issue, now we're essentially in that situation. We have an event, we have some words that describe it. Now we have to look at least one enduring issue that is reflected by that. So this is where you want to go scrolling down to the bottom of your page if you don't have something that jumps right into your head. So whenever we're talking about trade, the enduring issue that can always apply is interconnectedness. When you're listing your enduring issue, I want you to take a second to spend at least a few words, if not a short sentence, to explain why you're choosing that. just like the categorization worksheets that we've done before. So in this case, interconnectedness is a good enduring issue that shows up here because we have trade routes that connect different civilizations. And we know that when there are movement of items and people like traders, as well as political diplomats and the political officials, and also even sometimes religious personnel like missionaries, when all those people are moving on these trade routes, they're promoting interactions between people of those civilizations. And that's where we see a lot of cultural diffusion happen as a result of trade. So interconnectedness is a perfect example of what they're showing us with trade routes connecting different places and some of the items that are being traded. So if you needed to stop there, if nothing else applies to this, you would be fine and you can go on to the next one. But I always want you to think of more than one, because when you look at all your documents at the end, the more enduring issues that show up, the better repertoire, the more ammo, so to speak, that you're going to have to be able to pick a good enduring issue that you know a lot about. So think about one more. Is there anything else that shows up in this document that fits into an enduring issue? We have trade, but what else is there that maybe can fit into a category? What I'm thinking of is not only is there trade, but what is being traded? Salt and gold are things that are in the ground, that people are mining. And what do we call it whenever a civilization or people are interacting and manipulating the world around them, the actual earth? We call that human-environment interaction. And I'm choosing this as a possible second option for an enduring issue because West Africans are mining for salt and gold. They are using the natural resources in their environment, in the earth around them, to gain an item to trade with. So there's two actual enduring issues that show up pretty prominently in this document. Now think of the third task. List any outside information that you are reminded of when you're thinking of these two concepts, these two enduring issues in this document. So this is a little tip. What I want you guys to think of is take each enduring issue and connect the evidence of that enduring issue in the document to anything else that isn't quite told to you or shown to you regarding that concept. So for example, we mentioned interconnectedness because there's trade routes of salt and gold between these different areas and between these different civilizations. They're also showing us on the map that kind of along the same direction of those trade routes is Mansa Musa's route to Mecca. So this is a perfect example of something that they're showing you on the map, but not telling you an awful lot about. You have to give outside information that is not explicitly in the document. So for our first piece of outside information, think about anything that you remember about Mansa Musa's route to Mecca. What did he do along the way? What was the impact of that travel trip that he made to Mecca? So a possible response for that would be, Mansa Musa of Mali became rich off the gold and salt trade, and then spread his wealth while on the Hajj, or pilgrimage, to Mecca. So that example there is taking this little clue that they're showing us and adding some information that we could possibly use in the essay to show off a little bit about what we know beyond what they're showing us in the document. So that's one good piece of outside information, but especially if you have a second enduring issue, think about any other outside information that this enduring issue can remind us of. So human-environment interaction. We have West Africans mining for gold and salt, and they're using those natural resources to trade with. So think about, does that show us any other clues or remind us of something fancy that we can add as another piece of outside information. So the other thing that comes into mind when I look at gold and salt being traded in this direction up towards the Mediterranean across the labeling of the Sahara Desert, here's another labeling, kind of like the route to Mecca, where they're telling us where these trade routes are going across, but they're not necessarily showing, this isn't a physical map that shows that this is a desert. They're just labeling it as Sahara. So we can add some information because we know a lot about the hot and dangerous desert that the Sahara was, and we know how challenging it was to cross it for these traders. So we can say something like, traders used Arabian camels, dromedaries, to help carry their cargo because those dromedaries could take heavy loads and go a long distance with that cargo using very, very little water. And this outside information, this is stuff that even if you're not really remembering a lot of info just from thinking about the enduring issues that you've identified, for this practice, this of course is open note. Go back into your packet if you need to, and look for maps like this. Look for sections and text readings that cover something that is jumping into your mind you just can't remember a lot of information about. So this table now is completed very thoroughly. We have lots of information that we could put towards an actual essay if this was a Regents task. So I want to go back to the documents just for a second. So use that as an example of how I want you to work through these. There are 4 documents in total. The second one is called the Mali capital of Timbuktu. This is the same excerpt from the Swedish explorer that we saw in our packet pages. So go back to the questions about that text if you need some help on identifying the enduring issue, or especially adding any outside information. Document 3 is another text only. This is called Mansa Musa and the Kingdom of Mali. This is not in the packet, but something about Mansa Musa that we read about in our article, and we watched a little bit of info on our video clips. And then the 4th document is a little bit of a combo of a map of Ibn Battuta's routes on his travels and a little bit of information that introduces the significance of Ibn Battuta. So you have 4 documents to practice. Please do not forget about our closing task. Once you have gone through the 4 documents, you have just a simple choosing of which enduring issue you want to theoretically write about, and an explanation of why that enduring issue is historically significant. So that is your task for today. If you guys have any questions, please email me, but use that example as a template for how I want you to work through this. And that finishes off our week. Just as a heads up, next Monday and Tuesday will be spent on just doing a short quiz to finish off our Unit 6. And also I'm going to give you some time and instructions on completing your unit packet pages, along with making sure that you turn those in on the Google assignment post before we start any new units on Wednesday. So folks, there you have it. Enjoy your weekend. Don't work too hard, but also make sure that you're catching up on any older work. The due dates that I give you on stuff, remember, are just guidelines. If you're a little bit behind, that's perfectly fine. But use the information that I'm giving you here on these distance learning schedules. Use Aspen. Use the little upcoming box on the side of Google Classroom to help keep track of your assignments and your due dates. All right, guys, have a great weekend. Enjoy your day. Stay happy, stay healthy, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.